friends and neighbors. Welcome in the light, where laughter's the answer and hearts are shining bright. With calloused hands and wits, so razor sharp, let's praise a place where love ignites the spark. In the field of dreams where sweat and hope combine, we'll raise our voices high and toast to the divine. Be your best and let your spirit always rise. Give thanks for every moment under sunny skies. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. It's the sunny side of life. I'm Troy Thompson here, sitting in the studio here at Sunnyside Farms, having a great time and reviewing a week of things that did and did not happen. And I can't wait to tell you the stories, and then taking a look at maybe what the future holds and what that might mean. But it is June 9th. The Monday of the 9th of June, 6/9/25. I don't know what that means. Maybe something special? I'm not sure. We did just pass the 6th of June, which of course is the day that D-Day occurred. So we experienced that. And I don't know if you took a moment to think about that and take a moment to thank God, I suppose, for everything that our World War II veterans provided, especially those that went out there and tackled the shores and the cliffs of Normandy on D-Day. And of course, if you like the movie series Band of Brothers like I do, or even Saving Private Ryan, you probably are kind of a fan of what happened on D-Day and how that turned out to be pretty good for Europe and, at least most of Europe and the United States and the West in general. Well, anyway, so last week when I left you, I said I had a lot of things to do, which included picking up bales because it was going to rain, which we did. We had some baseball boys come out, including my son Colin, and we picked up 300 bales, 290 actually, to be specific, that really turned out really well. Got them all. I thought we could get them all on one trailer, and alas, we could not. Now, these boys are so busy that they are going to weights at early in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Then they've got some football installations. They've got some other training things they've got to do. They might have some basketball. They might have some baseball. So they're not able to be out to the farm until about just before 10 o'clock in the morning. And I had to get going because I needed to be in, I wanted to be in Algona for a livestock auction to buy feeder steers by noon, because that's when the steer auction occurred. Well, the boys showed up, and it was just before 10 o'clock in the morning. We got everything picked up. My mom came over. And helped the drive. She drove my truck, and I thought we could get everything on my gooseneck trailer, which is about 30 feet long, and we couldn't. We were about 90 bales, 70, 80, 90 bales, somewhere in there, short of being able to get everything on one trailer. And believe me, that was a big trailer full of nice, fresh, sweet-smelling alfalfa hay that we were able to get put away because inevitably it did rain. Then my dad came over with another trailer, and the boys went out with him, and they picked up the remainder of the bales. And then my mom hopped in the truck with me. She loves to go to cattle auctions. It's been a while, I suppose. They raised steers every year, feeder steers, and finished them and then sold them off the hoof to their customers, and did that for many years. And we were customers as well. So I said, I will take that operation over and get into the business. So I had told my dad the week before that that's what I was going to do. Hey, Monday, Dad, I'm going to go buy some steers. They got a big auction over in Algona. I'm going to go to it. And so I just need to make sure that the waterer is on and ready to go, because we'll be bringing steers home. And so my dad said, okay. And then he decided to go turn the water on Monday. And you know how things work out. They don't. And so I went up to see him because he wasn't at his place, and went up to see him at the other place where the cattle yard will be. And he was, he was into it with that water. It turns out that when he turned the water on, that there was a leak underneath the waterer. And so he had to do a whole bunch of work that day to scramble to get the waterer going. And he succeeded, even while taking an extra, about an hour to haul those boys around and pick up the remainder of those bales for me while I was traveling over in a hurried fashion with my mom to attend that sale. And so he really put his blood, sweat, and tears into getting that waterer going, and my brother helped out with that because he's right up there on that farm with him. And so they got the waterer going, and they were ready just in time for the steers to show up. But here's the thing. The steers never showed up. I went over to Algona with my mom. We got there right just before noon. I got my little number for the auction so I could make my bids, and I was all excited because I wanted to judge the steers as best as I could from the research that I had done, and I was going to buy some feeder steers. And boy, when they say they had a feeder sale, a pre-summer feeder extravaganza, they weren't kidding. I bet there were 1,500. I think it was 1,500 feeders that went through that day from noon until we left at 5 o'clock. We were there for 5 hours, and I think of those 1,500 steers, over 1,000 of them were heifers. That's a girl cow. Now, those are also feeders, and you would buy those to, you could finish them out and also turn them into, steaks and hamburgers and roasts and things like that. But typically people buy heifers so that they can have breeding stock and get them to the proper weight and condition so that they can start their own herds or add to the herds that they have. Well, I wasn't really prepared for that. I have a plan that includes buying heifers and calving from start to finish with a particular breed of cattle, and they weren't present. So I was just going to buy steers this year to just about 10 of them to sell to you if you are interested, and get that going. And they would probably be ready, since it's this late in the year, probably in February. Anyway, what I discovered, and I did learn a lot by going to this auction. And if you've never been to a livestock auction house, it's like a 2-story building, maybe a little taller than that, and there's a big long building behind it, and then there are yards where they keep the cattle in, and they usually bring the cattle in the night before, or maybe a little bit earlier, and then they feed them if they're there, say, over the weekend. But then the night before, they cut them off from both food and water. And they do that so that you're not buying a bunch of, cows that are full of food and water, so that you can kind of get a true estimate of the weight, because you buy them by weight. And so these cows are hungry and they're thirsty and they are ready to go. And so the first animal that they didn't start on time, I will say that. They did not start on time. They said they were going to start at noon. They started at like 10 or 11 minutes after noon. Maybe that's not a big deal to some folks, but I like it when auctions start on time. So we're in this building, and it's kind of like a 3/4 thrust stage is what they call it in the theater, where you have this a door gate on one side, and then kind of a circle arena that's not real big, but you can get probably 30 or 40 cows in there, and then another gate on the other side that they run out. So they come in one side, where behind that gate there is a scale, and they all stand on the scale, and then they divide that total weight by the number of animals that are in that lot. And then that's how you get the average weight. And so that's what you're bidding on. So some cattle are going to be a little lighter, some are going to be a little heavier. They just average it all out, and you're buying them by the average weight that is at auction that moment in front of you. And so they'll bring them in typically in groups of, 10 to 20, maybe 30 if they can get that many in there, depending on the size of the cattle. And you take a look at them, and you're looking at their coat, you're looking at the way that they walk, their shape, the color of their coat. That's a big deal. Although anymore these days, it seems like all cows are black. Why? Because of the Angus meat folks. the Angus Cattlemen's Association, Black Angus, or whatever their association is called, have done such a great job since 1978 convincing silly Americans that Black Angus beef is the best beef you can get, which isn't true. I don't know if you know much about cattle, and I'm not an expert cattleman because I have no cattle, but I've been researching, so I'm just speaking off of my knowledge on this type of thing. For years, for decades, maybe centuries, well, not centuries, but in the United States, the cows that you would see were red, and they'd have a white face, Herefords. And that's kind of what you saw here, all over the place. And there are many, many different types of cattle out there, and many breeds. And so at some point, I guess this association for the Black Angus started in 1978. They really wanted to promote their product. And they were successful, I'll tell you what, because people just want to buy black steers. That's all they want. Now, the color of the meat is the same. and you're not buying the color of the coat typically. So how that got to be such a tremendous buying bonanza for Americans, and how the labels on the meat in the grocery store say 100% Black Angus. There's also Red Angus, and there are a variety of crossbreeds and all kinds of things that farmers are up to. But Black Angus is very successful. So most of these cattle, by the way, were black because that's what people think that they want. Now, when a cow goes to market and it gets butchered, they do the kill, and then they hang it to weigh it after they've cleaned it out and whatnot, and that's the hanging weight is what you're probably most interested in, because that's where most of the food, that's where the food's coming from. You're not buying the color of the skin or the hair on the cow. But then the USDA, the meat inspectors, will come in and they will inspect each half, each cow, each hanging steer after it has been killed to determine the grade of the beef. And there are a number of grades, everywhere from, say, dog food level, not good beef, to all the way up to, prime choice, whatever it is, choice, I don't know, select, I don't know, the top beef, what your restaurant quality is. Okay, so, you see these labels on the meat products in the store, and you're thinking, well, that's both high quality, and also it is from a Black Angus steer, so that's probably really, really good. And so marketing works, friends. It works. But the truth is that you could have, and sometimes cattle have twins, and you could have twins from obviously the same mom, and they could be the same steer breed, obviously, and they will go to market having been fed the same regimen of diet and raised in the exact same environment. They can go to the slaughter, and they can be graded completely differently. How does that happen? It's a mystery. So there's no guarantee that just because the steer is a particular breed, that it is going to automatically be the best cut of beef. But they know that you don't probably know that. So it's just a marketing ploy. and they've done a great job. So nothing against Black Angus. There are obviously many benefits to raising Black Angus or Red Angus or Angus beef in general. They're fairly hardy. They're kind of a mid-sized cow. They finish out in that 1,500 pound range, maybe a little higher than that, a little lower sometimes. And so the usual math for a steer when you're taking them to the kill for butchering is you collect about 60%. The value of the meat is about 60% in that range, 60% of the live weight of the animal. So depending on whether they just eaten that day or how much water they had and, how much fat they have, how big boned they are, it varies, but it's right around that 60%. So, if you were to buy a whole steer and it was a 1,500 pound steer, theoretically you would get, the hanging weight would be around 900 pounds, and the meat that you would get from that would be somewhere in the 750 to 800 pounds of meat. That's a lot of meat, which, by the way, is how we buy cattle. That's how we buy our meat. We haven't had store-bought beef on purpose for years because there's just no comparison for what you can buy in the store and what you can buy at the incredibly inflated price at the store, because obviously the grocery store has to make a profit. The meat packers have to make a profit. There could be a buyer in the middle or two. They have to make a profit, and so on and on and on. And depends on, what all the inputs are, and which include things like, does your cow, while you're raising it, cows are, God made cows to eat grass. That's what they do. They take the amazing energy that's put into the grass and the hay and whatever it happens to be, the plants, because they are herbivores. They take that energy through that God throws into these plants through photosynthesis and all that other magic of science and biology and botany and whatnot. And they take that. If you were to eat, to get the energy, if you were to eat the same grass, you would have to eat a lot of grass versus if you ate a hamburger or you ate a steak. So the cows, through God's amazing just brilliance, when it comes to what we can eat, says, well, we'll have a cow here who will take that energy from the sun and the elements and eat it, and then they will turn that into compact form of energy, which you can then eat for your protein and your minerals and everything else that you need, for the most part. And you can have that energy in a much, much, much more compacted and easy to consume process, instead of trying to eat, forage a bunch of hay for yourself. And so it's wonderful how God makes that work. And so all of that, that meat is just wonderful to consume. And it's summer, and so we love grilling, and we love burgers, and we love steaks, and we love brisket, and we love all of those things. And cows, and beef is just such a great meat, and it is at an all-time high right now. So I don't know what you're paying for beef at the grocery store, because I don't buy beef at the grocery store. My freezer is full of beef. And I know where those steaks came from. I know where that hamburger came from. It's one cow that the hamburger comes from. Why does that matter? Well, when you sell thousands of cattle and they're processed in a day, all of those cuts, that the trimmings that they take off of, when you're making your steaks and you're making your roasts and you're making, your short ribs and whatever it happens to be, there's still lots of leftover stuff that comes up, and that's called trimmings. Those trimmings get ground up, and that turns into your hamburger. Okay. And when you take that hamburger and you run it through a major manufacturing, processing plant, and there's only like 4 or 5 of them in the country, so it's a little bit of a bottleneck there. They just take all of those cuttings, those trimmings, and they grind them all up together. So you might have 20 cows in your hamburger, which maybe that's not a big deal to you. Maybe that doesn't mean anything. But I can tell you this. My hamburger is a different color than the hamburger that's bought in the store. And the steaks that I have are delicious, and I get to decide how thick they are cut. And I placed my order with the locker to be done and trimmed a certain way. And so what that means, though, is that, and it saves me money. I mean, the average price is probably between $6 and $8 a pound total. So that's a bit of an outlay from, like if you're going to buy a quarter beef, or a half a beef. Quarter beef is about 200 pounds typically. Half might be around that 400 point, and you can figure out the rest. So if that's what you're going to buy from a farmer, you're going to outlay a little bit of cash right away. And in some cases, you might pay the farmer for the live weight based on market prices, or a little bit better because they're selling it to you directly instead of taking it to the market themselves. And then you take it to the locker, and they do the kill and they do the processing, and that's anywhere from $1 to $1.50 a pound, depending on where you go and what you're having made. And so when you add all of that up, you're into that $1,000 range plus, or maybe a couple $1,000. But the amount of money that you get, if you took all those same cuts of steaks and roasts and hamburger and short ribs and a brisket, if you get a half, and all these different things, if you took all of that stuff, you would be spending 2-3 times that amount of money just buying it in pieces at the store. So it is a cost savings, but it means that you have to have the money up front to be able to buy that. So not everybody can do that, and that's why it works well to have grocery stores, and that's why most people go and buy their weird colored beef at the grocery store, instead of buying it from the local friendly farmer who's happy to sell it to you, and the licensed locker that will process it for you. So anyway, that's the whole plan. And like I said, there's no difference. The color of the skin or the hair of the cow makes no difference in whether it's it really comes down to how well marbled it is. So there's an argument then that you can. Well, it's not even an argument. The way most cattle are raised in the Midwest is that they are fed. Because they are animals that need. They're herbivores, and they've got 4 stomachs to process that magical grass the way God designed them. They have to, so they have to eat that for roughage, right? And farmers will feed them everything from obviously hay, different qualities of hay. It could be grass hay, it could be alfalfa, it could be a mixture of a variety of things. It could be corn stalks. It could be any number of things just to get the roughage. And cows will eat it. They'll eat it because that's what they want to chew on stuff all day. But the way that most cattle are raised in the Midwest is that they're supplemented with grain, which is corn primarily. Now, there are lots of other grain supplements that you can feed and finish cattle on, and it's basically whatever grain is available in your area. And so that's been going on for a long time. The reason that they do that is because it makes the cattle finish faster. They get fatter quicker. Biblically, the fattened calf can be fattened quicker if you can feed it lots of grain. And that is true because, in our case, there's a lot of corn around here. So corn-fed beef is and it tastes delicious. There's no doubt about that. You get well-marbled meat typically because there's fat in it, because that's what sugar is. Corn is sugar, and cows eat the corn. It has to be ground up, and they have to have some things added to it. They got to get protein, whether it comes from soybean meal or whatever it happens to be. And they eat that. And sometimes, depending on what their grain rations are and how fast certain farms are trying to finish them, and believe me, if there was a way for farmers to finish cows as fast as they can finish pigs or chickens, they would do it. But cows take a little bit longer. They take a little over 9 months, a little longer than a human to gestate. They take another 9 months or so, or maybe a year to get to that 700-800 pound range, and then you still got to finish them another 6, 7, 8, 9 months to get them to that spot where you want to take them to market or to the locker if you're selling off the hoof. And so it is a couple of years at the minimum, or 2.5 years in that range to finish a steer. You can finish a pig in less than a year. In 1 year, you've got a pig, and you can sell a bunch of them because they have 10 of them, 8 to 10 of them, and it's way, way, way more convenient. And sheep and goats, they have twins typically, and all of these other things, so they finish faster. So if you feed an animal grain, for meat, they will get more fat on their body. Some of that will work its way into the muscle. And then they will, it'll taste good, and you can get them to market faster, and then you can make more money faster. That's not how I want to do it. I don't want to do it that way. I want to just raise cattle the way that I think that God intended, which is, let them eat grass. Let them give that which the God has provided for them. And so provide them with pasture. And I'm not a lunatic about grain-finished, grain-fed beef, grass-fed beef, grain-fed beef. Either way, however you want to do it, I don't care. But it costs money. Corn is like $4 a bushel, and apparently that's cheap right now. And if it takes you thousands of bushels of corn that you have to grind up and add protein supplements back into it, and some other supplements to kind of deal with the dyspepsia of cows eating grain instead of eating corn because their stomachs aren't necessarily designed for that process. Did you know that like 60% of the calcium, citrate, nitrate, whatever it is that is in Tums, that particular chemical is used actually as a supplement for the cattle industry in the United States so that they can finish them faster by feeding them grain. That should tell you something. Like maybe they're not meant to do that. So by and large, they should be mostly on roughage. To me, the advantage of feeding them hay and then having them graze on pasture is they get exercise. They have a normal cow life until it's over and they become steaks and hamburger. And, I don't have to buy corn. And I don't raise corn. And even though there's plenty of corn out there, I just, you don't have to do that. But they will take a little bit longer to finish. And there is a John Deere versus Case International or Ford versus Chevy versus Dodge, whatever, raging argument in the business about which beef tastes better. And I'll let people have that discussion. They can argue all day long. I don't get involved in arguments about what truck is the best truck. I buy Fords because I like the people at Ford. And also, they didn't take a government bailout. So there's that back in 2008. I don't really, I have John Deere tractors. My dad has Case International and Fords and stuff like that. I just did it because they're the closest dealer. So they were just closer. And so I didn't want to have to go very far when my tractor breaks down, which they inevitably do. And so, my decision points are different. My loyalties are strange in that regard, I guess. But anyway, the point being that I just want to, raise cows who have calves, and those calves become steers, and some of them are heifers, and they build the herd, and then you just kind of do it biblically, and you sell that meat to your trusted clients. That's it. That could be you. But I didn't buy any heifers. I did not buy any heifers because I wasn't ready for that. I don't have the grazing land that I thought that I might have yet, and so it wouldn't work out to, in my opinion, start out with the heifers and then have them calve, and then have both cow and calf in a lot together and raise them up, and then have to get them, weaned and separated and go through that whole process. I have the hay to feed them, but I don't have the space to graze them yet. And so that is something that is in the works, and we're trying to make those things happen. So I just wanted to buy regular old steers. Didn't care if they were black or red or maybe white because they were Charolais. I liked the Charolais breed for a while. And what I found is that after listening to this for, 5 hours and really not being successful. And I didn't bid on a single steer because it was just too much. Not money, just it was like I just wanted 10, and they would sell them in lots of like 60. And this went on forever. And then their scale broke, and there was a 45-minute delay, and I don't think they started selling steers, actually, until, 4:30, 4 o'clock. So, I mean, I had to get back and announce a baseball game. I smelled like a sale barn, so I definitely needed to clean up. And I just came straight to the sale barn that morning from picking up a bunch of hay and getting that loaded up. So I was ripe, and I just was very disappointed in my day that I didn't get a chance to buy steers. And I felt bad because my dad had worked so hard, and my brother had helped out to try to get that waterer going, and I had the hay in the round, and I was ready to go, and I had that hay that I didn't really like very much, and I was going to use that as bedding, and I had that, in the shed for them, and the lot was ready to go, and I still have improvements that I intend to make on that lot and everything like that. But at the end of the day, which was 5 o'clock, my mom and I headed back, and I was just kind of crestfallen, to be honest with you. I didn't feel like it was a total waste of time because I did learn an awful lot about the process. There was a guy there who had come up from, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, south of Ames. And he told us he had to buy 400 steers. So he waited just as long as we did that day. And finally they got to the steers part, and that's when he started buying them. And he bought everything, and every steer, every heifer, every cow, for the most part, unless there was something wrong with them, was about $2,000 each. So if you ever wonder if it's easy to get into cattle, you got to have some money to put into it, particularly and it doesn't matter if you're going to buy heifers and you're going to start a breeding stock. That's what it's going to be. It could be a little bit more, and certainly is more to buy a bull and make that whole process happen. If you're going to buy cows that are already pregnant, they cost more. If you're going to buy a cow calf that they've already given birth, and now you've got 2 cows and with breeding stock capabilities, it all adds up. And every one of them is about $2,000 right now. So it's a bit of an investment. And I was prepared for that. I had a number in my mind, so it kind of jived with what I was thinking. But I didn't buy anything, like I said, because I just got to that point where they had waited. I didn't realize that they had so many that they needed to go through. Now, they do an auction every Monday, and I'll probably go back. And, maybe I'll do that today. There's also other auction houses that are kind of in the area, within an hour or so. And I got them on my calendar too. I've learned, though, that I might call ahead because, or maybe I'll just do it online. But I don't know if that's a good way to buy steers. I don't know if you can buy animals on. I know people did. They were buying them online, that's for sure. But then you can't see what you're buying. And sometimes these cattle have damaged, eyes, or they might have something going on with them that you can see in the show ring that you just couldn't see online. And so I don't know if I would probably want to do it in person, particularly since it's my first time and I'm really a greenhorn. A greenhorn. I wonder if that's a cattle reference. And anyway, that's how that went. It was a learning experience, and my dad, he wasn't terribly upset that he had, really worked hard to get that waterer going. He was more concerned that I wasn't going to do it at all. But Heidi and I are still convinced that we want to do that. And we have a plan in mind. We do want to raise them start to finish. We want to enjoy that process. We want to teach that process to our children, even as they are getting older, and someday to our grandchildren. We want to be able to provide a meat for our family, food for our family, and then also be able to sell, not get rich off of, but to sell that quality meat to you, our listeners, our family, our friends, and neighbors. So that is yet to happen, but it is still in the works. And it has caused me to revisit my research archives of the getting into the cattle business, and hanging on pretty tight to the idea that I definitely want to continue to graze. That doesn't mean for the next year or two, as I get into some feeder stock, that doesn't mean that I won't buy those and feed them in a lot. I will, but ideally we want to get to that point where we are just grazing them, letting them eat what nature provides, what God provides, enjoy the sun, have a happy cow life until it's over. And then they're on the grill. Well, I have come to the conclusion, and we'll see. I do change my mind, not as often as Trump does, but I do change my mind occasionally. And I'm convinced that I want to help rebuild a non-Angus cow breed, which is known as the Red Devon or the Ruby Reds. Now, the Devon cattle are out of Devon County, England. They were the first cattle to come, at least into the English colonies, right away in someday 1623, 1627, so into Boston, about the same time that my family arrived. And it was George Washington's favorite breed. And so you can still go out to Mount Vernon today and see some Red Devon cattle. And they're a little smaller. They finish a little smaller, maybe in that 12 to 1,400 pound range for steers and less than that for heifers. But they breed a little bit faster. They finish a little bit faster. And they finish entirely, like all cows will actually, the way God made them, on grass, on pasture. In fact, the Red Devons, they don't even like grain. They'll get too fat if they eat grain. And so what's nice about them is they're incredibly cold hardy. They can handle hot weather. They can handle extremely cold weather. They have the thickest hide of the cattle breeds out there, so they're just able to withstand that. And then they don't get cut up, which means that they don't get infected. Their calves, they calve easily on their own, which is a big concern, particularly with a lot of crossbreeding. If cows have trouble, not to say that Red Devons will never have trouble delivering their calves, but very rarely. And like I said, they look beautiful. They're very docile, very peaceful. They're only about 4.5 feet tall. Maybe 5 feet, maybe more than likely they're just 4 to 4.5 feet tall. So very manageable, very peaceful, and that's what I like. And so it's hard to find Red Devon. The nearest one is probably 2 to 3 hours away from where we're located, a breeder for the Red Devon cattle, and their line is protected because it's not going extinct by any means, but it is not as it used to be incredibly popular, and now it's become it's just the Black Angus is all there is, man. And so I like the Red Devon. And here's the best part of the Red Devon: it's gourmet meat. It is, I don't know that there are people that are going to disagree with this, but the Red Devon meat is well marbled, and it finishes on grass, and it lives on grass. So to me, that means I'm not buying corn. And they're eating grass, and they're having a good time, and the beef is fantastic. So if you want gourmet beef in the future, keep on listening and find out whether this ongoing situation as we struggle or determined to find the Red Devon herd begins here at Sunnyside. But in the meantime, we'll do the best we can to find the best steers, a handful of them, and get them raised up. And then someday, maybe in February or so, you'll be able to buy them, and that'll be nice. So that's what happened there with my purchasing cow story, and it didn't go the way I thought it was, but that's how, you make plans and God laughs at your plans, which is exactly how it goes. Now, there's just one other thing that I want to talk about because it is in the news. Moving on to something real quick here. And I'm not sure what's happening out there, but obviously the ICE is out and about collecting up illegal immigrants, the criminals, and depending on who you listen to, the level of their criminality, higher or lower. But if you are illegal to the United States, if you're not here legally, then you have broken the law. So that is when you break the law, that's a criminal situation. So I don't think that is really worth arguing about much. Of course, my heart goes out to people who have done everything they can to get here and try to make a living and do everything they can to be good citizens, even though they're not legal citizens. However, the law is the law. We are a nation of laws, or we aren't. You either are or you aren't. You don't get to pick and choose. But in California, this past weekend. They have been throwing rocks and being violent and demonstrating, getting physical with the ICE agents as they roll through Los Angeles and collect illegals as they are prone to do in these larger cities. And the Los Angeles Police Department was, doing its thing, and they got attacked and different. And so Donald Trump decided that he was going to send in the National Guard. Okay. Well, being a National Guard vet, since we were just talking about cattle, I mean veteran, not veterinarian. Being a National Guard vet, there is something called posse comitatus, and if you're not familiar with that, that is that's a law, an act from say around 1838, somewhere in that range, where it is it's not legal for the President of the United States to use federal troops, all right, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, or the reserves, Army Reserves, Navy Reserves, Air Force Reserves, Marine Reserves, Space Force Reserves, if that's even a thing. And it's not legal. The president can't do that, to send them into the United States to handle civil unrest or policing activities. You can't do that, which is why when the California wildfires were going, wild, and it's right next to Pendleton, the Marines couldn't do anything. Why? Because it is a civilian matter in the state, and the state is controlled by the commander-in-chief of the state, which is the governor. The governor in every state has their own army and their own air force. That is what the National Guard is composed. And so the president cannot send federal troops in to do any policing action without the permission from the governor of the state. So if Gavin Newsom didn't want to mobilize the California National Guard, Donald Trump cannot send in federal troops, and he can't federalize the California National Guard because he's not their commander-in-chief today. Now, if they are federalized, then he does. I mean, the president is still the commander-in-chief. It's a little bit complicated, but there is a dividing line between what the state governor is in charge of the National Guard, and they're paid for by both federal and state monies, depending on the action. So the governor can use the National Guard for policing actions, for civil unrest, for riots, that type of thing. Any governor of any state can do that. And the mayor of the District of Columbia, but not the president. And the president can't send in the 101st Airborne unless it's a cause or a case of insurrection. And depending on who you ask, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years, what an insurrection is, you're gonna get lots of different definitions, and it is a little unclear. It's a little vague about what an insurrection could be. So if Is it at the level of insurrection in California so that the president can send in troops or federalize the National Guard? That is a constitutional crisis type of question, whether the president can federalize any state's National Guard without the consent of that governor and their legislature. You just can't, I don't think you can do that. It's a question of, whose guns are they? But President Trump, as is typical, says a lot of things, and I think he really thinks he has more power than I think he understands. But he is very good at putting the word out there. So what could have happened is if the National Guard from California was federalized, my guess is how that would work is that because he can't just swing in there and say, okay, now they're mine. That's not how it works. If that happened, it's probably more along the lines of, okay, California, which is notoriously in debt because of their terrible spending issues, they perhaps Gavin Newsom said, okay, well, we use the National Guard here. Will you pay for it? Then they're on federal orders, Title 10 instead of Title 30 or whatever it is, Title 34, I don't know what it is, different titles. The state pays for one, and Title 10 is the federal. And so if that happened, if that phone call occurred, if the governor asks for help, then if the president's for it, then yes, they can federalize those troops, and then you and I pay for California National Guard to take care of their mess out there. And so it could be, and my guess is this is ultimately what happened. The devil is in the details, is that probably did occur. If the California National Guard is being used, it was with the authority of the governor of California, and they probably did get the president to pay for it. And then because of that, then Trump heard what he wanted to hear, and then he took credit for it and says, I'll send in the National Guard. And maybe they are. And we're probably, all that means is that you and I are paying for it instead of the state of California. If that is what occurred, because I think that would be the legal way to have, because I don't think it's at the level of insurrection. If it was the level of insurrection, you'd still have the problem with the National Guard posse comitatus, the governor being in charge. But then the governor could send in federal troops, whether they were reservists or they were, the 101st Airborne, and got to go to Little Rock, Arkansas. As you have seen before with Eisenhower. So that is my observation of what has occurred this weekend. Jumping in front of the parade and taking credit for things is what politicians do. But I suppose if you're the governor of California, who probably thinks he wants to run for president, and he's trying to make himself seem a little bit more moderate, and knows what the spending situation is, maybe he's going to let that happen. Maybe not. Maybe not. We'll find out if any of this even matters. But regardless, people shouldn't be throwing rocks at law enforcement officers. They shouldn't be protesting in that way. And why they're protesting to keep illegals, particularly criminals that are violent criminals, or whomever Tom Homan says it is that we're going after, then I don't see why you're supporting, that and rioting to protect those elements of society whatsoever. But people are what they are. And that leads me to my final discussion on a guy named Kurt Schlichter. Kurt Schlichter is a retired Army infantry colonel, and he's also a practicing attorney, and he's an author and a commentator. And he has written he's written many books, but he's written 8 books that follow this character who is what's his name? I think it's Kelly. What is his name? I'll come up with it anyway. The whole deal is that in the future, Kurt Schlichter writes in the near future of a United States of America that has separated. And that is starting to happen in California right now, where people in California are advocating that, well, we're not going to pay taxes to the federal government. We're going to focus on our own things. This also leads to the topic of secession, which has been popular since the 1830s, and in a variety of different ways. And so Kurt Schlichter has written 8 books, and they follow this through line of America at some point in the future, because of its vastly different red and blue politics, has split apart. So it's a fictional series, and maybe in the dystopia, adventure, thriller, politics, column of books that you might like to read. And he says that he's established that there was a war, and that the vast majority of the landmass of the United States, from Texas, Arizona, north through the Dakotas, Montana, not half of Minnesota. You can guess which half. Then straight down, kind of skips Illinois, and then maybe up into the Virginias, or at least the Carolinas, and then down to Florida. That's all red, and that is the United States of America. Okay. And then the Northeast, which would be that northeastern portion of Minnesota down through Wisconsin, Michigan, all the way over to Maine, and the Northeast, the 13 original, well, not 13 original colonies, New England and whatnot, and then all of the Northwest corner, so Washington, Oregon, and California, and little pieces of states in between there, part of Nevada, whatnot. Those are all blue states, and they are the People's Republic of America. in his fictional series. Now, the first book in this series is called The People's Republic, and the main character is a veteran of that civil war that occurred, that the United States split apart and went completely two different directions. We have a very conservative, free enterprise Midwest Southeast, and then you have a very blue woke socialist, you name it, left coast and right coast, northeast corner, right? And so he's a veteran of that, and he's dealing with those issues. But a family from Texas pays him to go to California and rescue their daughter, because what happens is, like all other communist countries in history, which is what he's saying these blue states inevitably become, because they're going to have this socialist, utopia, and it quickly just turns into what every other socialist utopia ultimately becomes. Is just like the very, very few elite have all the power and all the money and all the authority and all the privileges, and everybody else is just, schleps and poverty and crime and you name it. And it is, at some points, it's very funny. Kurt Schlichter has a wicked sense of humor. The guy is paid to go into California by this Texas family to rescue the daughter of this family and bring her back across the lines, because people from the red states, the United States of America, can go into the People's Republic of North America all that they want, but you cannot leave the People's Republic of North America. You can't do that. They're not letting their people, their citizens, can't go into the United States of America. And so he talks about, he gets there to do this mission, and they've got like an NBA game in Los Angeles, and it's NBA, and they're all like, half of them are in wheelchairs. They're like 5'2", obese, variety of colors and appreciation for different sexual preferences, and the game is just terrible, and nobody's happy, and this just crime is everywhere, and there's just all kinds of problems. The socialist mentality has completely broken down, and it looks like, it's behind the Iron Curtain. Meanwhile, in the United States of America, everything's just doing great. Their business is thriving, people are still, they have free speech, and, there's political battles, but I mean, they're all on the same page. So the country divides is the whole series. And then there's constantly action and adventure as things occur between these two nations made out of one United States of America. That book, the first one in the series of 8, the Kelly Turnbull series, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. That's the main character's name, Kelly Turnbull. His, the Kurt Schlichter's first book of the Kelly Turnbull series is called People's Republic. That's the one that I was just referencing. There are 7 others after that. They are very entertaining, and it does make you think about. There's also a series of fictional novels that have been out since the early 70s, where Californians and Oregonians and Washingtonians have all advocated that they should just secede from the Union and go on and get away from this religious and conservative and, wicked capitalist, center of the United States of America, and go do their own thing and live in this socialist utopia. Of course, those fictional novels make it seem like that it's going to work perfectly, because that's a historical precedent. And that probably is the best example of that it truly is fiction, maybe even science fiction in that regard. And you can read those books as well, but I don't. I just read this one by Kurt Schlichter, and of course there are 7 others, an 8-book series, and it'll probably turn out more. It's the Kelly Turnbull series, and it gives you an interesting, action-packed thriller and fairly humorous at times view of what would happen if what the folks are asking for actually occurs, that California secedes from the Union. And they do, and nobody cares. Like, nobody cares, and so except it doesn't work out well for them. And I think that would be the ultimate lesson of this entire situation in California, that they are, they and not just California, but New York and, Massachusetts, various other places, great parts of America, that they just, it's like the rift is so wide, it seems right now, that we just can't come together and bring unity to the country, because we don't want unity. We don't seem to want it very much, which is too bad. But that's because they have bought the They've bought the marketing, man. They've bought the marketing that the blue way is the best way, that it's the peaceful way, that they're the only ones that know what's going on. And the red way is the red-pilled way, and they're the only ones that are godly, although that's, debatable at times as well, and that they're the only ones that know how to run free enterprise, although, we'll see how that goes, and on and on and on. And we're just divided. But we've bought into the marketing of red and blue, haven't we? It might as well just be the same. Maybe it's the same marketing group that came up with the whole Black Angus thing. But either way, it's been very successful. And maybe it did all start in the late 70s, like the Angus Association did. Maybe they are behind this whole thing. I don't know. We'll find out. But in the meantime, I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to look for... Well, I don't care what color the cattle are. I'll get the feeders eventually, and we'll get them in the lot, and we'll have them for sale when the time comes. But in the future, in the Republic of Sunnyside, there'll be red Devon, ruby red Devon cattle. And I look forward when that day comes. Till next week, my friends, I hope you have a great week. I hope you keep your hands calloused, stay busy, volunteer, do something useful for your community. Don't forget to pray, and always try to be the sunny side of someone else's life.
When the shadows fall and doubts begin to creep, remember together we're strong, never weak. Lift your neighbor up with kindness every day. Let your actions speak the words you want to say.
The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. None of this is possible, of course, without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory.
Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life in Christ be made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.